Hey, howdy, hey, everybody. My name's TS, and I write comics. I'm going live to answer questions about making comics, like Hellion and Bash, my brand new comic, which I should have a copy of. I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab a copy. And see how the sausage gets made. I got this. Hold on. I got a whole stack, brand new copies right here. Hey, Miss Susie, how you doing? Look at that, fresh comic. It smells like ink. I am alive. I had a sick kid all day. I just switched off with my partner. She's going to look after him for a little bit so I can go live and talk about comic books because that's my life. I was told I looked a little bit rough too before I was going to go live, so I also showered to make sure that I looked okay. Lucky 33 Comics, how's it going? Tomonomicon, how you doing? We are here to talk about Hellion and Bash Issue 1 and Issue 2 if you want to ask questions, but I finally got it published. The new publisher, Professional Entropy. The Kickstarter is fulfilled with the exception of like 1 or 2 packages that got delayed out of the UK. Everybody who bought a copy has a copy of Hellion and Bash, and that's really rad. And we're about ready to launch Issue 2 on Kickstarter, which is really cool. Six Kill, what's going on? There's a party in the YouTube chat. And if you don't want to watch it on YouTube for some reason, you can watch it over on TikTok, vice versa. I'm also over on YouTube. This is an interesting angle. It's because I'm short. Let me raise that up. Nope, didn't do anything. Still short. What's going on? Plastic and Pages, Katiza, Comic Talk. What's going on? So yeah, ask me any questions about making comic books. It's hard to do. And it's really expensive. And if I had more help when I was first starting out, I would have loved it. So I'd love to answer anything you want to know about making comic books. Because, like I said, it's not easy to do. And it's quite frustrating. And I really wish there was more information about it when I got started. Luckily, I had some really awesome friends, like the dudes over at Lucky 33 Comics, Mr. Fish, and and a few others. And that really helped kickstart everything. And I've been able to put out a few books. Hellion and Bash technically is my second book I've ever put out, but it's my first published comic book because I licensed it right as I was about to print it myself. Publisher picked it up and they paid for it to get printed, and they're paying for issue 2. That's why issue 2 is already almost done, is because of awesome people like everybody here in the chat that helped me get noticed by a publisher, and I didn't have to sit on my hands and wait. So issue 2 is right around the corner. I got to hand a script off, and Marcus, my artist that worked on this with me, got right to work, and it's already underway. I just turned into the script for issue 3, which is crazy because it's already happening. So if that's another good plug. If you want to buy an indie comic book and you're afraid of, I don't know what's going to come out next, we're probably going to do issue 3 right after we do issue 2. There's no delay. It's happening. 3 issues, that's crazy. Right? Like, it is. It really is crazy. I honestly don't know what to do. So I went from having to beg people to check out my Zoop crowdfunding campaign when it came time for Tokyo Fire, my first book that I was crowdfunding. And now I just turned in the scripts for the rest of The Digger, which is coming out from Invader Comics later this year. Distro pending because of the whole diamond thing, but that's going to be hitting stores in September and then later on into 2026. And so I turned in every that. That's going to be 4 issues. Hellion and Bash is technically ongoing. Professional Entropy has signed on. As long as people are buying it, I'm going to get to keep making it. So who knows how long that'll be. That might be 10 issues because people give up on it. It might be 100. So we'll see. If people keep buying it, they said they'll keep putting it out, which is pretty cool. You still got to pick up Tokyo Fire. You totally got to pick up Tokyo Fire. 6 skills. Also, hit me up. You have my email. I can get you a copy of Tokyo Fire. Don't worry about it. I know a guy who knows a guy who can get you a copy of Tokyo Fire. My Zoop. I love Zoop. Honestly, I'm going to go back there. The Digger is probably going to crowdfund on Zoop. Because it's an awesome platform. I went to Kickstarter originally because I wanted to build up on several different platforms. So a lot of the professional entropy stuff is going to be running on Kickstarter. And then I'll be doing more of the other stuff like through other publishers, probably on Zoop. 45,000 issues. I would love to do 45,000 issues. I could talk about this stuff all day. Oh, thank you so much for the gift. Amber, you're the best. Thank you. That means a ton. I'm going to be honest, though. I still don't quite know how gifts work on TikTok. So if you want to explain it to me on just like how thankful I should be, it could be 4 cents. You mean the world to me. Thank you so much. Let me go through some of these other questions. And thank you so much for the gift, too, Mr. Midlife. You're the best. Comic Talk, how's it going? I'm trying to balance doing 2 different chats. So don't mind me if you see me looking back and forth. Plastic and Pages, what do you think is harder, writing comics or adapting a comic to a screenplay? Oh, well, I've really only done mostly working on comic books, so I haven't really adapted too many things for a screenplay. I've written screenplays before. I don't think they're as good as my comic books, hence why I write comics. But I would say adapting anything is harder than you think because sometimes it's easier to just make something up than it is to try to fit one story that was made for one medium into another. Sometimes that's really difficult. I do a lot of editing on the side and I do adaptation work, usually prose like novels to comic books. And it's a little bit trickier than you would think. It's really tedious too. There's a lot of like boring stuff that goes into it. So I would say probably adapting. Yo, I have a question. Yoo-hoo, you're the best. Go follow Yoo-hoo Comic Review. Yo, I have a question. Do you script issue by issue or with a full comic arc in mind? I do script issue by issue, but I come up with the whole arc ahead of time. So I have outlines and like basic summaries of several different arcs for Hellion and Bash, for example. I know exactly what's going to happen in issue 3 and in issue 4, but I don't have full scripts for issue 4 yet. I usually work issue to issue when it comes to the scripts. Partly that's because I can't put all my eggs in one basket. I can't write 45 issues of Hellion and Bash before I know where it's going to live, before I know if someone's going to pay me to do it. I'm doing that for the first time right now. I'm working on a comic book with at Mr. Fish Comics. Shout out to Mr. Fish, one of my good friends and mentor. And we're working on a story in between all of our other stuff. And we're just working on it and seeing how far we can get. So we have several issues that we're banking. And I wrote most of those issues about a year ago. So that's like the first time I've ever done that. But usually I write issue to issue. And go ahead and share this out. If you know anybody who's interested in making comic books, wants to learn how to make comic books, has questions about self-publishing or finding a publisher, I'd love to help any way that I can. Is there any other questions here? 6 skills. 6 skills, you're everywhere. I got you on YouTube. You switched over to TikTok. You just messing with me, dude. Whoops. Now Ezra's over here. Thank you so much for the gift, dude. And now you're over in the TikTok chat. I'm playing like musical chairs here. Lights popping off. I'm trying. There's a lot of people here. I'm going to switch over to TikTok. All right. So that's how everyone bounced over here. But thank you so much. I appreciate the gift. Did I have a hat for a second? It's the mustache is strong when you give me the fake mustache gift, and it just looks the same. Like nothing changed about my face. So that's how I know my mustache game is definitely leveling up. I love it. Anybody else have any questions about making comic books, about Hellion and Bash? Issue 2 right now, if you don't know, the pre-launch page is live on Kickstarter right now. So if you want to head on over to Kickstarter, you can go search up Hellion and Bash issue number 2. Maybe I can put the link in the chat. And basically all you got to do is click the notify me button, and then you'll find out when it goes live, which will be within the next week or so. So if you're excited about Hellion and Bash, if you just read issue 1 or you haven't picked up either, you're going to be able to catch up. Issue 1 is going to be part of that Kickstarter, so you can catch up and read issues 1, issue 2, and issue 1 of Tokyo Fire if you want to, check that out. I know a couple people were talking about it earlier in the chat. That was my first comic book I did that Professional Entropy also licensed. So that's another cool announcement. Tokyo Fire is going to be getting its full 7-issue run over at Professional Entropy. We're going to be working on that after this first arc of Hellion and Bash. So that's Really exciting, really cool. Sky Hawkins, the co-creator on Tokyo Fire, is going to be joining me there. She's super excited. It's going to be a good time. I love that world, and because people cared enough about it in Hellion and Bash, that's why I'm able to do this. So it means the world to me. I really appreciate all of you. There's like a little love affair happening in the TikTok chat. I see. Okay. Mr. Midlife Crisis and Ezra System, get a room, guys. We're talking about comics here. All right. Or just keep doing what you got to do because the engagement's great. I can pin a comment. I should pin this conversation. Oh, man. How's everybody doing? Oh man, I got more comments over here on the YouTube. Yo, do you script issue bridge? Oh, I already answered this. I answered this question. Did you miss it? I'm so sorry. But yeah, I mostly write issue to issue, but I come up with a full arc. I have outlines and summaries for most issues and the general idea of the story, and then I do issue to issue. Must be difficult if you don't know if it's going to get picked up. It really is hard. That's something I just talked about this on a TikTok recently, but if you want to get into writing comics, especially, but writing in general, you have to get used to no one telling you, hey, it's time to write. Hey, you have this deadline. Hey, you got to do this, or working towards this. Like, oh, it's cool. I get to turn this in for this project or whatever. There's none of that. You're usually working on spec. It's all good, but you're usually working on spec. You're just creating something, hoping somebody will want it. And that's why you can't go too hard, depending on your budget and your time constraints. That's why I usually write 1 or 2 issues if I'm going to be pitching it. When I work with artists to create pitch packets for publishers, mostly what we do is we complete 1 whole issue or 1.5, and then we outline the rest of what it'll be. Sometimes we have some concept art for other issues, but that's mostly, we just focus on 1 good issue to try to hook publishers, and that's worked so far. But a lot of times you're writing whatever and you're hoping it sticks. Do you listen to music while writing? Is there any albums or artist songs that you have inspired you for particular projects? Oh, for sure, dude. I'm a big music guy, and I can't write without music. Now, it changes depending on what I'm writing. When I'm writing Tokyo Fire, I listen to a lot of funk, and I listen to a lot of like experimental lo-fi stuff, and like techno hip hop stuff. I really like chiptune music when I'm listening to that. But then Hellion and Bash is a lot of old school hip hop. That's what Bash listens to. In the issue, when you hear him tap his headphones, he's listening to Run DMC. I love all of that. But it really depends. Right now, I'm listening to Atomic Bitchwax, the Gravitron album, one of my favorite albums of all time. You can go check that out. The Beaches, love the Beaches. The Late Show is one of my favorite albums of like all time. So, yeah, there's a couple recommendations for you. Mike Kroll is another one. Anything by Mike Kroll, if you've heard of him. Krol. Love Mike Kroll. Real Steven Universe vibes. He actually does a few songs in that show. So, just if you don't know any of the words I said, it probably just sounded like a lot of word salad, but those are all real artists that I listen to on a regular basis. Are any of your submissions for publishing skills transferable to, say, video games? They definitely are, 6 skills. And as Alakablam gets closer, I would love to help you do some of that. And also, I would still love to write some stories for you as that gets closer. But yeah, it's definitely transferable. I would say the biggest thing when it comes to pitching anything that I can give you, because like I've only gotten a few yeses, but I've gotten 3 so far when it comes to publishers. So I'll tell you what helped me there. Number 1, you got to have something awesome. It doesn't matter how good you are in the room if you can't make a cool thing. If you can make an okay thing and you're good in the room, that'll definitely help. But you got to be at least somewhat skilled at what you're trying to sell. Number 2, be fun, be affable, be good in the room. Make sure you're entertaining. Be excited about the thing that you're talking about and get them excited about it. You're a hype man for your own project. You don't have to be a carnival barker, but you do have to be entertaining. I look at it as like a tight 5 that I'm doing in stand-up. If anyone has ever done an open mic or something like that, that's what it's like when I get in the room. So just be prepared and be able to entertain and be able to change on the fly. They're going to ask you questions and they're going to need you to come up with stuff that you probably haven't thought of. So don't be afraid to improvise. Don't promise anything that you can't deliver, but you need to be entertaining. You need to be affable and you need to be able to improvise. You have to hype your stuff up. You have to. You have to be your biggest fan when you go in there. And even if you're not confident, which I am not, I'm a very, very unconfident man. I'm a coward too. So when I go in there, it's mostly lies. Fake it till you make it is real. I remember meeting with Invader Comics. Invader Comics had reached out to me. They were excited about it. They had saw me talking about the Digger. I had pitched it here on TikTok, and some of my friends, shout out to Russ, he had basically pitched me in their comments, and then I went in there and they liked it, and they reached out to me to pitch. They're like, hey, do you want to talk about this? We like the book. I had sent them like the actual pitch packet, but the main thing was like, hey, we want to actually talk about it. And they wanted it, and I was still nervous. And it's basically like a group interview, is how I would describe it. As I went in there, and there's like 12 dudes that I don't know. I know Mike Perkins, but there's other people there from Invader Comics that I don't know, I've never heard of, and they just sit there quietly, and you tell them about your book, and you have to be excited about it enough to talk for quite a while. And you have to be able to answer questions. They were asking a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily know the answers to. But if you know your story, if you believe in your story and what you're bringing to the table, and you have a good product already, you can fall back on that. You can tell them the things that you know that they already liked about your book. And the same thing goes for your video games. If you're excited about it and you know what you're talking about, they're going to feel that, because they're not always experts on what you're pitching. So you can kind of teach them about it. Do you have a quick and dirty guide for pitch packets? Sure, Tomonomicon. Number one, go with whatever is the most popular and done the best. So if you see someone's like pitch packet that went to that editor, and you're going to be pitching that editor, crib it, copy it, make your pitch packet look like that one. That's what I've done to every single person who's ever even considered publishing my stuff, is I made it look like a thing that they already said yes to. The hardest pitch was to Professional Entropy, because those guys were just getting into publishing comic books. They had never published comic books before. And they were friends of mine. And when it came to pitch packets, I just used the same format that I pitched to Invader with, basically, because they said yes. I thought maybe that would look like that. But the big thing is use your logo. Distill the coolest sentence that you can describe, just down to one sentence. Your entire pitch, if you can, like, work on it for months. Get it down to one single sentence that you can put up front, right below the logo, right below the title. Put what your pitch is. For the Digger, it was, what if Indiana Jones hunted Short Round? For Hellion and Bash, it was, who protects a superhero sidekick from his superhero? You know what I mean? Like, you just get that, like the base idea distilled down to one sentence and put it there, and then just sell it. Just start talking about the things that you like about it right below. Keep it short and sweet. Get it down to a paragraph, and then right below that, then you talk about you. Talk about why they should hire you. You basically do a little resume right there. Talk about why you're awesome. Talk about why you're excited to work with them, and that's your first page. The next page should be what they've asked for. Usually it's a description of the arc. So a one-page description of what your arc is going to be from start to finish. And then depending on who you're pitching to, the next page should be your preview pages that you have going. That's where it starts. If you pitch to someone like Dark Horse, they don't want to see a single page arc summary. They want a single page on every single issue. So you got to put a little bit more thought into your arc for them. But most publishers, that's what they want to see. What do we got in here? Yo, when Digger hitting my hands? September at the earliest. And that, because that was the deadline for issue 1, which has been completed for a long time. Issue 2 is almost drawn right now. I just sent issue 3's script to Sam to kind of go over the rewrites, and issue 4 is already done. We kind of already know what we're going to do with that. So later on this year, and then early 2026, Invader Comics, it's going to be rad. Again, distro depending, because we're going through Diamond, and who knows what's going on with Diamond. So depending on who else we get this distribution through, might do some direct marketing to some comic book shops. That's another thing. If you guys have comic book shops that you like, that you're interested in, that you're like, hey, this is my shop, don't be afraid to ask them about these books. I sell to comic book shops all the time. I was just chatting up with one of my favorite comic book shops, Spooky Lake. Check them out. They're on Whatnot if you're not in the area. But I just sold a bunch of comic books over to them. Direct marketing is super helpful and might be the only way we can go going forward with everything that's going on. with Diamond. And Lunar and Penguin, they've been picking up other smaller publishers from what I've seen. So maybe they're going to change the game and start picking up all those little, really tiny ones like Diamond did. So Blood Moon. I would say Invader is getting much bigger. But when I first signed up with them, they were a little bit smaller, and they've only grown since then. So I don't know how small they'll be come next year. Those dudes are awesome, though. Do you have a quick? Okay, I think I've answered most of the ones that have built up. So that's so freaking cool. I can't wait to see that first yes. Hey, yeah, 6 Gil. And you know what? Don't stress yourself out about it, because really the first yes that matters is you. Get that product finished, get it to a point where you're excited about it, because that's the thing. That's what helped me so much in all of the products that I've pitched, because I haven't gotten too many yeses on projects that haven't been at least somewhat finished and ready to sell. So, like, for instance, Hellion and Bash, Tokyo Fire, and The Digger, the 3 projects that my 3 comics that I've sold to comic book publishers, had the first issue completed already when I sold them to them. So when I got them licensed over there, when they said yes, they already had a finished comic book that they could look through and go, oh, this dude does know what he's doing. This artist does know how to deliver. He can work in a team. He can finish the product. And that helps me go in with the confidence of going, they don't have to hope on a prayer and go, well, maybe. Like, I can show them the thing that I've already done to show them that I'm good at it. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to lie. I don't really have to fake that part. I did the thing. I'm good at it. You can see that. Help me make more is basically what I'm doing. And when it comes to video games, that's something that you can do. You can finish Alcablam, have it ready, and just show it off. You can sell it on Steam. You can take it to any of those cons and be like, dude, check it out. This is an awesome game. I've already sold 400 Steam keys. And that's how you get noticed by a larger, comic book publisher, developer, video game stuff. That's how you get noticed by them, is to show them that you already know how to do the thing. And it's transferable to video games as well. When I talk about comic books, when people ask me, how do you do it? You do it first. You make a comic book, and then you make another one. You make another one, and eventually you're going to get opportunities to pitch yourself to larger publishers. But the only way to do it is to be already doing it. And the same goes for video games a lot of the time. I wouldn't hold your breath, as medium-sized publishers are not moving to Lunar. That's fair, Cosmic Times. I had the same thought, but like, and Mad Cave is a bad example, because Mad Cave is another one that started out real small, and now they've started to reach those upper echelons. But the fact that, Oni and Mad Cave, IDW is too big, but Oni and Mad Cave have found distribution between Lunar and Penguin and stuff like that. It seems like there's hope to a certain extent. But I agree. That's the thing that I've been worried about. I'm not holding my breath that this is going to happen, and that's why I've been doing so much direct marketing. And it's worked, because a lot of comic book shops, they're just as upset by this as well. A lot of my local shops don't really care for indies. They don't have the space or the time or the money to support indies in that way. But a lot of the shops that I found online who do love indies, they understand that it was hit. They started ordering comics immediately. They were ready to go to that direct market. They've signed up for a lot of those smaller publishers, like TKO is a good example, right? It's like, we're doing direct marketing right away. So I think we're going to be able to survive this. I think we're going to be able to work through it until something either fills the vacuum of Diamond, or until one of those other publishers decide to switch and allow smaller publishers to go about that route. We should work on something. Also, got to say, your TikToks have definitely helped me write comics. And actually, we should work on something. I appreciated your Spider-Man pitch that you were talking about the other day. Keep making stuff, though. Don't hold your breath on someone like me, who's busy as hell and always sleeping. You know what I mean? Like, make stuff without it. But I would definitely love to pitch you some stuff and talk about stuff. I'm actually just working on something with our mutual Arth. We're about to finish our first issue and start pitching it to different companies. That's one I'm hoping to pitch to Oni, actually. So yeah, definitely be. And we need to put out our zombie comic. I worked with Hayashi a little bit last year and the year before, really. We did a little zombie anthology that's been too expensive to put out on our own dime at the current point, but I would love to get that out there into people's hands. We have this little pencil collective that we met through Instagram, and we've been making a few comics through there. Make sure that first yes is you. How dare you say something so absolutely right? Listen, I'm an armchair philosopher, right? But it's hard, and it's not just believing in yourself. Belief in yourself, I think, is a little bit overrated, because I know a lot of delusional people that have a lot of belief in themselves and they've never made anything of consequence. It's not about believing in yourself necessarily. It's about allowing yourself the bandwidth to finish that project and just go, hey, this is a thing that I want to do. It's worth it, right? Because a lot of times with art, it's not going to pay off the way that you think. It's not going to make you money. It's not going to pay the bills. Usually it's only going to cost. It's only going to cost you stuff. But if you really believe it, then you can answer that yes and go, it's worth it. And if you answer to yourself that it's worth it, then you'll do it, and you'll do it right, because you're basically giving yourself permission to say that it matters. But I will say that it's a double-edged sword. It is also the scariest thing, because the second it's not just for fun, the second it's not just a hobby, the second you say, I want this, and I want this to be real, and I want to do a good job, that makes failure a real possibility, right? This is a failure that's not, I'm not failing if I'm not good at basketball, but I love playing basketball, it's not a big deal that I miss a shot, right? But if you're going to do something like this, make that artistic endeavor part of your career, failure becomes a real option, and it becomes not a possibility, but it becomes the most likely outcome. And that's the thing that you have to live with. And failure hurts when you really want to win, right? Failure doesn't hurt if you don't care. But the second that you care about succeeding, failure hurts real bad. So part of that saying yes to yourself is saying, like, hey, it's okay if I fail. It's going to hurt really bad, but I need to be okay with that. And I still need to try, and I still need to put my all into it. Benny, what's going on? I owe you a text message, dude. How you doing? Buy his books. Hellion and Bash was received but not read because I'm buying on books. Krager, I understand that you haven't read it yet, dude. Like, that is completely fair, because you're a lot like Mr. Midlife Crisis. I see you in all of the different indie comic book spaces, so I understand that you haven't quite got to it yet. It'll be there when you do, and I appreciate all your support, dude. Don't believe in yourself, believe in me. That me that believes in you. Exactly, dude. I always love that quote. I'm good, bro. I appreciate you though, Benny. I've been working on lots of stuff, so so sometimes I get behind on some of the personal stuff. I thought someone was going to join for a second. I think I clicked the wrong button. Oh man. Anybody have any other questions about making comic books? I don't know I know you were clicking around. I don't know if you got the answer to your question, but if you have any other questions, or if you need me to repeat anything, I do not mind. Hellion and Bash #1. If you have questions about this book too, I'm super excited about it. Anybody who has read it is about to read it. I hope you're excited for issue 2, because listen, speaking of failure being a possibility, now that I have a publisher, I need to sell those copies, right? Because before it was like, well, I hired an artist, my buddy Marcus helped me make this book, and we care about it, and we really like it, and we want it to do well. But if it doesn't, that's okay. It's just for us to a certain extent. It helps me build my resume. Now a publisher gave me a lot of money, and a lot of money is here or there, but they helped me pay for the book to be finished, right? They helped me pay Marcus, the artist on the project, and a letterer, Mike Stock, really, really good letterer, to finish issue 2 ahead of time. It's already paid for. The book's already almost done. We're getting ready to prove everything and get it ready for printers. So I have to sell this book, right? Like, I can't just go, oh, no, it's okay. Like, it's good for the resume. Like, I have to make enough that they'll let me make issue 3 and issue 4 and the licensed Tokyo Fire issues 2 through 7 that we have coming out later on this year. And I need to make sure it sells well, so Invader Comics still sees that I'm worth publishing, so they continue to let me put out The Digger, and hopefully more projects that I'm pitching right now. I'm working on pitch packets for so many different publishers. Hopefully all of them will still exist after this whole Diamond fiasco. So if ever there was a time to go and click that notify me button when this launches thing, that pre-launch page for Hellion and Bash issue #2, it would be now. It's over on Kickstarter. I would really appreciate it. It goes a long way. It helps the algorithms and all the other math that I don't understand, and it helps me show off to all these publishers that I still have it and people give a crap. Even if you don't, you can pretend. It's okay. Listen, no one has to know. You can pretend like you give a crap. It's totally worth it. 2 through 7. Nice. Yes, Tokyo Fire is a 7-issue miniseries, as I said in that original Zoop video. And so far, and the issues that I have turned in scripts for, that still holds steady. Now, Sky Hawkins is an amazing artist, and I love working with her. And if she comes up with some crazy ideas, maybe we try to go to 8 or something. But we're promised at least 7. So as long as we keep selling them, we'll get there. You know I care, my man. Benny, you're the best. I know you do. And you got it. Listen, I'm working on a project right now for Benny Rose. So, personal skin in the game. As you can see, other people are hiring me for stuff. Mr. Fish Comics is another one. Real quick plug at Mr. Fish. Has a project going on right now, Green Zone, Life in the Blocks, issue number 4. I got the pleasure of editing. It's amazing. It wraps up the first arc of Green Zone. If you like X-Men or Training Day, this is the perfect marriage of the two. So please go and check that out. It's all about a group of mutants that are basically trying to earn their citizenship by having to become cops. And that comes with all the sticky situations that you can think of right now, plus some that you haven't thought of. And it's a real gray area, awesome comic because it's a rough life for them, and it deals with all of the heavy topics that you're thinking of. So if you like indie comic books, if you like stuff I've written, at Mr. Fish is just as good. Go check out gomrfish.com and go back that book because it's super good. And my name's on it, right? So if you like me, if you like this mustache, then go support Mr. Fish. Oh, man. Jordan McClanson says, when are you going to write a book about making comics? When people want to read that. I don't think I have enough to say about it. Because here's the thing. I'm sure if you've seen any of my videos, you see that when I give advice, when I talk about the stuff that I've done and the things that I can recommend you do to help you succeed, I only ever talk about the things that I have succeeded at, which is indie comics and small publishers. Okay? Like Cosmic Times was talking about, it's like, are medium publishers even going to exist as we go forward? I don't know. And I don't necessarily know that I'm an expert on how they exist right now because I've only ever gotten yeses from small publishers, and I've done indie stuff with my indie friends and by myself. So I won't ever give advice that hasn't worked for me yet. So I won't tell you how to break into comics. I won't tell you how to get a job at Marvel and DC. I won't tell you how to get the attention of the people over at Image Comics or to talk to pros because I really don't do that. I have a few mutuals online that are pros that work with those things. And that's about the extent of how I've made it in the industry. I've worked with small publishers like Professional Entropy, which is a brand new publisher. That's probably why they said yes to me, is because they're just starting to make comics. And I'm working with Invader Comics, which is a reputable place, but they're still on the smaller end when it comes to publishers. So, it is what it is. I won't write a book telling you to do stuff that I don't know that works because I'm not going to talk out of my butt. You always have enough to say. My wife has entered the chat and she knows that I'm a yapper. They made a good choice. I appreciate you, Benny. Of course, you got to gaslight yourself into thinking that I'm a good writer because I'm helping you write stuff. So you have to at least believe that I'm good. Otherwise, what's the point? Also, just as a little plug, I am doing another one of these lives tomorrow in the middle of the day. I have a lot of followers who couldn't make this 8 p.m. thing who had backed the project that I'm doing this live for Hellion and Bash issue number 1. And so if you don't get your questions answered here, or if you just want to hang out with me again, I'm going to be doing this again tomorrow around noon. So feel free to jump back and ask more questions if you want to. Speaking of, anybody have any questions about Hellion and Bash issue number 1, making indie comics, working with smaller publishers, anything like that, feel free to ask. Hellion and Bash issue number 1 just shipped out to like everybody, and issue number 2 is about to go live on Kickstarter next week and the week following. So if you're excited about anything superheroes, the top level pitch basically is who protects a sidekick if their superhero is the problem, right? Who's going to fight back for them? What if Batman was abusing Robin? Who's going to stick up for Robin? Who's going to stand up to Batman? If they did stand up to Batman, what does that mean for the world? Because now we don't have Batman, right? So you have all these superheroes are complicit in this kid's, rough home life. And who steps up but the supervillains? and we start questioning what villain means, and that's all about Hellion and Bash. So if you like any of the words that I just said or superhero comics in general, please check out Hellion and Bash issue number 1 and issue number 2 about to go live on Kickstarter. There, I did my plug for the hour. What do we got in here? Mrs. TS, you are one of the best wives ever. So nice to see how much you support it. Dude, she is the best. My wife is the best partner I could possibly ask for. She's the only reason why I get to do this. Not only is she the breadwinner, but she loves comics and loves that I make comics and has talked me into making comics. I've tried to quit this job so many times because like I used to have a somewhat cushy office job. I used to write about automotive parts for different car companies, and I was like a technical writer, you'd call it. And then I did some coding on the side, and it paid the bills and it did what we needed to do. And when my wife graduated college to get also a good job, a better job than what I had, she was like, "Hey, you hate your job. You need to quit and you need to make comics finally. You've been talking about it. You've been yapping about it forever. Go make them happen." And she supports me daily. She reads everything first. She loves comic books in general. She's always reading new stuff and always helping me find new comics to check out. But she reads all of my stuff first. She's the first eyes on every single script, every single idea. When it's just like a glint in my eye, she's the first one to hear about it. And she's my hero. What kind of stuff is he even saying? I love you, honey. Nothing but good, I promise. I support him, and I've never seen him happier. That's true. That's true. I know I seem like a miserable man, but I'm extremely happy making comic books. That's the hard part, right? Is I've never been broker than when I started making comic books. It costs so much money, and it's such a pay-to-play industry. But man, did I hate my job, and I love nothing more than writing comic books. It is the coolest job, and it's so special. And I will tell you that if you want to make it in comic books, the only way to do it is to make comic books, and you have to really love it because there's not a lot of money in it, especially at the lower echelon. But even as you get higher up, you're not going to get rich making comic books necessarily. The people that do it are few and far between, and are all named James Tynion and Tom King. Scott Snyder's also made some pretty good money in recent years, right? But like the list gets smaller all the time. So you really have to care about it. I would say if you don't love it, if you don't love doing it every single day, you can't make comic books because it's not going to be worth it. The best piece of advice I could give is if you have a nice cushy office job, keep it and use it to pay for making comic books. So if you want to quit your job and make comic books, don't. Keep that job. Use it to pay for making comic books because you have to build that resume. You have to basically pay your dues in comic books for a long time before you'll get noticed by some of those larger publishers. And that's not cheap to do. And it's not easy to do if you're just making comic books. Geez, she's my hero. Aw. Yes, I gush over my wife because she's the best. Stephanie Phillips just out a video about getting paid writing comic books. She did. I watched it, Yancey. Great video and so true. And like you can get paid. Like she was talking about making royalties and stuff that she did. DC's really good about that. If you've created characters for DC, you're going to get royalties. They fought really hard for that earlier in the decades, so that's really important over there. But making it there, pushing your way through, like the coolest thing about making comic books right now is the barrier of entry is like non-existent, right? If you make a comic book, you just put it online. You can show people on TikTok, post it on Instagram, Webtoons, Tapas. You can just send it out there. But that means people can do that. That means your competition not only is like prevalent and everywhere, but it's stiff. Like there's some really good indie comic books that when people see it, they can either buy Hellion and Bash or they can buy that other one. And they're not always going to choose my book because there's so many awesome books out there. So when it comes to like working with Marvel and DC, it's really hard to make sure that you get noticed on that end. And the only way to do it is to keep putting out books. I'm surprised they said Marvel and DC are paying royalties, especially. Marvel does. It's not as much as DC. DC, you make more. Like there's some really famous stories about people making more money off like TV appearances of a random DC character than big Marvel characters in like Endgame, right? I won't speak on that because I'm not in that room. I've read a lot of books on it, and that seems to be the case often. But you still get to make money making comic books, and that's hard to do. So I still recommend it, and I would still recommend trying to work with them. I see a lot of indie dudes who are like, I'm never working for Marvel. I'm never working for DC. I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm going to be the next Marvel, next DC, next Image Comics. That's not my credo at all. That's not what I'm trying to do. I am trying to work for Marvel. I'm trying to work for DC, and I'm trying to leverage that to go work on other creator-owned stuff. I want to work on comic books where people will pay me to make comic books, to build up an audience, to take them to more creator-owned stuff. I want to be everywhere, and I want to write for anybody who will let me write. And because I'm a jobber, I'm a creator. I love doing this. I love writing. I take the gigs because it's fun for me. I like getting paid to do it, obviously, too. But I want to work in the industry. And the best way to get longevity is to make it to the big two and to carry that audience to other creator-owned stuff. That's the way so many people have done it, and it works almost every single time if you know what you're doing. Get your stories into as many hands as possible. Exactly. That's really what it is. And there's no bigger audience for comic books as much as Image is giant and Boom's doing great and IDW struck gold with The Last Ronin, right? Like, there's still nothing bigger than the Marvel and DC audience. So if you want to work in comic books, if you want to do this forever, if you want longevity, if you want this to be a career, getting to Marvel and DC should still be a stop on your journey. And I highly recommend that. And I've seen so many people do well once they do that. But what do I know? I don't work for Marvel. I don't work for DC. Stephanie Phillips is a much better person to ask, right? Neil Adams said that he got paid royalties for his DC characters, but not his Marvel ones. Exactly. Nancy, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, you're in the know, man. That's exactly it. And also, I don't talk about this a lot on stuff because it's harder to make content about. But one thing I would say, learning how to write is important. Reading as many comic books is important. But the other part of it is learn about the industry. Learn the stuff that we're talking about. Learn about these publishers. I've seen so many people who don't even know what Diamond is, as Diamond is floundering and declaring bankruptcy. They're like, yeah, who cares, right? And it's so important if you want to work in the industry to understand the industry, understand the business aspect of it. I learned a lot about it by following all of these different websites that talk about the insider stuff, Bleeding Cool, stuff like that. David Harper's Off Panel is another great insight for it. Hearing him talk to not only creators, but distributors and comic shop owners has been a game changer when it comes to trying to break into comics, understanding how they work. Reach out to publishers and distributors and talk to them. So many people work there. It's not just editors and writers and artists and the owners. There's so many people there that will answer questions, and you should learn about the industry you're trying to get into. Comics Pro is happening this month. You should watch that. You should learn about the direct market and how that works if you want to make comic books, because so much of your job is not writing or drawing comic books. So much of your job is doing the marketing, is doing the legwork, is doing all this boring stuff that you have to understand if you want to survive it all. Another great insight into the business of comics is Ideas Don't Bleed. Love that podcast. So go check out those two podcasts and learn something. My dad was one of Diamond's first customers in the 80s when they had one warehouse. See, that's exactly my point. Like, they were such a mainstay, and the fact that they're going away, man, yeah, Diamond was. That's a really good point. Yes, that's God, that hits hard, and it's so true. And Diamond had a lot of issues, but they also propped up a lot of smaller publishers and gave them a chance. And most comic book shops, you don't think about this because you think comic books, Diamond is a distributor of comic books. Most comic book shops that you go into that sell other things other than comic books got them from Diamond. We're talking toys, board games, all of that stuff. Diamond. Lunar doesn't do that. Penguin doesn't do that. And I might be wrong. They might do some of that stuff, but they're not on the same level as Diamond. And I was just at a comic book shop the other day. I was just talking to them, Comic City, shout out. They were telling me that if the Diamond thing falls through and everything goes away as it's predicted to at the moment, they just won't carry toys. They're just not going to do it. Not because they don't want to, but because there's just no other option for them when it comes to distributors to make it worth it, because it was like, I'm going to order all of our comic books and we're going to order the new McFarlane line, right? So it's just, it's going to be a weird change. And if you think it doesn't matter, if you think it's not going to change stuff, you're wrong. And you should be thinking about it. Even if you are just a consumer, it's going to affect you and you should pay attention to it. That's how it goes. El Guapo, what's going on, dude? Marvel previews and DC Connects come from Diamond. Exactly. Exactly, dude. I'm scared for IDW now. If they go away, creators will suffer. They're already suffering. IDW, like I want to work with them. I love them, and I know that there's other issues. But you know, even before the layoffs that happened last week between IDW, Dark Horse, there was already checks that weren't being paid out in a timely fashion. Right? You hear about that from other creators, and this is going to affect them heavily. The cool thing is, if you can give them hope, is like the new Turtles run is doing well. The last Ronin just prints money and has propped up everything, even after losing the Transformers license and all the other stuff that went to Image. Like, they still survived all that. If anybody can survive, it's IDW, right? So we'll see. No one will buy those licenses to continue those IDW books. Like Image did, like they grabbed up everything, man. Like, and the Energon universe is huge. So we'll see. I was a big fan of like a lot of the IDW licensed stuff, Ghostbusters, My Little Pony. The Sonic run is really cool right now. I was just thinking about picking that up for my son, and it's going to be scary if something like that goes away. But I want you to know, like, as much as it's like crazy. Can you imagine DC publishing TMNT books? No, I can't imagine DC doing it, but we've seen it from other places. Everybody else has had the TMNT license. It's gone through so many different hands over the years. Like, people forget because it was slow. Image did TMNT for a while. You know, they had a solid run over there. So it's not like IDW has this like prolific sense, and it's the most recent, and it's still good, right? I just rereading the IDW line with my son. It's still awesome. But they existed for so long before IDW that they'd still exist afterwards. But I hope they don't have to. I hope IDW brings this around. Dark Horse is a great example when it comes to something similar to this. Like, people always think of the current Star Wars run at Marvel. Star Wars was Dark Horse's bread and butter for so long. And it's a little bit forgotten about because they've now been at Marvel for so long. But these books change hands. These licenses change hands. If IDW offsets Ghostbusters to somebody else, Ghostbusters might have a new life breathed into it. You know, like, it'll happen. Yeah, Marvel subsidies Dark Horse. DC should do the same for IDW. It'd be cool. I hesitate to say that DC would do something like that because of their own like business daddy stuff that's going on, right? Who knows how much thumbs on the scale James Gunn has or David Zaslav when it comes to DC right now. But I think they're experiencing their own what's going to happen, you know, when it comes to the industry because of everything in flux. I hate to say it, I think a lot of it rides on how well Superman does. If Superman is the biggest movie has ever seen, I could see DC having the cachet and money to maybe buy something like that, to buy some more licenses. But we'll see. Go watch Superman, y'all. Agreed, dude. Agreed. Go see it. I am like, you know, cynical business stuff aside, I'm so excited for Superman. I am so pumped for this movie. I really, really hope it's amazing. I'm a big James Gunn fan. I'm a big Superman fan, so I'm super excited for it. But I'm a big comic book movie fan, you know? Like, listen, I saw Craven, okay? Like, I love these movies. I'm not mad that they rebooted it again. I'm excited to see this. I want to see that terrible wig on Guy Gardner. I'm so excited for that movie, man. It's going to be so cool. Please support Superman so DC buys IDW and we get more Sonic comics. This is the wildest sentence that everyone has ever put in my chat, Yancy. This is crazy. Oh, man. I would love to see something like that happen. But also, I love the diversity in it. And, you know, if something happens to IDW, which I don't think that the nail is in the coffin yet, like, it is all connected. 6 degrees of TMNT. But like, I think that there's still enough going on in comic books. Like, we were talking about maybe some of these smaller publishers not getting distribution because Diamond's going away. But before they had distribution, people were walking indie comics into shops. People were getting direct to market stuff. It's easier than ever to reach out to a comic book shop and to sell your book. Will they say yes? I don't know, but you can do it. Like I said, I sold a good example. I sold 15 comics of Hellion and Bash No one has ever heard of me. No one has ever heard of Hellion and Bash. I found a shop that had other indie comic books on their store on Whatnot, and I said, "Hey, do you got a physical location? Can I give you physical copies of Hellion and Bash?" They said, "Bet," and they're selling digital copies now. So go check out Spooky Lake. I'm about to send them their invoice and ship them comic books. So like it can be done, and it will be done. And Diamond wasn't always accepting these really small publishers, right? It wasn't always the way. So comics aren't going to die because Diamond does, but they will change, just like they changed when Diamond had a stranglehold on it. You know, it is what it is. Jen, what's going on? You got to be like, hey, I've heard Diamond didn't deliver this week. Want to sell my books instead? Yancy, listen, that's exactly what I did. My wife can attest to this. We're sitting there, we're about to check out, and I go, listen, how's the Diamond stuff going on? Did you get your delivery this week? And the person behind the counter was like, no, we did not. And I was like, that's crazy. What do you think is going to happen? That's when we started talking about the toys and stuff. And I go, listen, I'm selling a book. It was about to be distributed by Diamond. I don't think it's going to be now. I don't think that Diamond is going to be there when my book is going to come out. I still want you to have my book. I love this store. I love shopping here. I would still love to get you my book. They took down the order. They took down the name. They have me. They have reached out. So like, what you said is spot on. That's exactly what I did, and that's what you should continue to do. And that's what other publishers are going to do. There's been so many initiatives. I wish I could name some of them off the top of my head. I can't remember. TKO is one, but I've seen several of these publishers that were a little too small to get picked up by Lunar or Penguin when Diamond was dipping out. And they said, okay, let's go to the shops that we know our books sell and set up a direct marketing order with them. We'll make sure that the book is there on time. We'll make sure that it's packaged right, which was a big issue with Diamond. So many orders came back like bad from Diamond, and the bigger issue that comic book shops are going to have that we're going to see is the returnable thing is, because you're ordering with Diamond, you could order 15, 30, 50 copies of a book, and a lot of those were returnable. So if that comic book didn't pop off the shelf, well, we can get our money back. We're not lost. They're going to be pickier and choosier when it comes to buying stuff now because they don't have that returnable thing. So even though you'll be able to direct market your books like the way that I did, they're going to order 5 copies. 15 maybe. They're not going to be ordering 100. And they're going to be doing that as well probably with some of the bigger titles too, because Lunar and Penguin don't operate the same way that Diamond did either. He was there like, lucky for you. Dude, that's the only way I've ever sold comics. No one has ever come to me looking for a comic book. People have said things offhandedly, and I go, well, actually, that's kind of what happened with Professional Entropy, right? These dudes were looking to start a publisher, and I was like, listen, I know a guy. I know a guy that can help out, and that's how it happens. So that's what you have to do. You have to hustle. You have to be in it. You have to be looking for those opportunities. I think John Avina is one of the best dudes at this. I highly recommend going to follow him to learn how he does that stuff. But you got to be at cons. That's my big thing for this year. Is I'm trying to get to more conventions to basically schmooze, network, talk to these people, talk to more of your fans, make new fans. You have to be outgoing to a certain extent. I'm not. I'm a shut-in. I want to sit in my room and write my comics and read other people's comics. That's what I want to do. But so much of the job is, hey, let's meet people. Let's talk to fans. Let's go talk to people who talk about comic books. Let's see if I can make them a fan. Let's see if I can learn something from them. Let's see if I can get them to talk to other people about my book. That's part of the job. You didn't have a demand, you created it. Love it. I mean, that's what it is, man. I just did a video about this the other day. The biggest part of the rejection thing that you have to do if you want to write anything, but especially comic books, is you have to accept no one cares. No one cares. And that's not them. That's not a them problem. That's a you problem. You got to make them care. They don't owe you anything, and they don't have to care. And you know what? When you first start out, they shouldn't care about you. You don't have a thing that is worth caring about. A big part of the marketing push for issue 2 of Hellion and Bash is me reaching out to all of my influencer friends. I'm sure so many people have been like, hey, I got a free copy of Hellion and Bash, because that's a lot of the job, right? You have to be reaching out to people, and so many of them just didn't reply. So many people are like, I don't care. I had people, I'm like, I'm offering you money to do a sponsored post for Hellion and Bash. Money that I know you don't have, money that I know I've seen you ask for on your streams. They don't care. They don't care about Hellion and Bash. They don't care about it, and they shouldn't, right? Who am I? I'm a nobody when it comes to comic books, so I don't blame them. You can't take it personally, but you can't be surprised when they don't care. And like I've talked to, like, I have some bigger mutuals on here that have said, yes, definitely, I would love to talk about your comic book. I actually enjoyed it. And then nothing, ghost. And I'm like, here's the check. And they're like, nothing, silent. Because they're getting emails from Marvel, DC, boom. They're getting stuff that they care about, they're excited about. You know, if they're going to get a free copy of a James Tynion book or the new Spider-Man, that's going to take precedent over Hellion and Bash. And I understand that. I don't take it personally, because who am I by comparison? And that's the type of rejection that you have to accept and fight your way through and make them care. The best compliment that I get often, and I will credit Kim Say, go follow her. I was on the Geek Speak podcast, is when I handed them this, they said, hey, this actually was pretty good. Like, they expected it to be trash. They expected it to be indie, and that meant amateurish to them. And it wasn't. This is a solid book, according to them. And that's what you have to do. You have to be your biggest fan and try to convince them. Got to channel your inner McFarlane. You can't. No one's head is as big as McFarlane's. That dude has confidence for days. It's warranted, you know, obviously, but no one can be McFarlane but McFarlane. I'm in that dude's Discord, and it's like, man, that dude's inner belief. He could move the moon if he wanted to, and it's impressive. That's how I feel about making content. No one owes me their views or likes. 100%, dude. And you're also like, you made that demand, right? When you got on TikTok, it's not like you had 1,000 followers to carry over from Vine or Instagram or wherever you're making content for, right? You built it here, brick by brick. I've been talking too much. I had to rehydrate. See, is anybody still in the YouTube chat? No, it doesn't look like everyone moved over to TikTok. Oh, I don't blame you. Do people watch stuff on YouTube? I started to when brick by brick, like the house that AJ Styles built. Dude, exactly. Oh man. Any other questions about Hellion and Bash, self-publishing, finding a publisher? Issue 2 right around the corner. Please go over to Kickstarter and like that. We're starting to run ads too. Professional Entropy, the publisher, had me cut an ad, and we're starting to do that. YouTube, never heard of it. I do exactly. But we're running ads for that. And also, if you know anybody, if you're an influencer, if you like talking about comics and you haven't got an issue of Hellion and Bash #1 yet, and you're interested in talking about it, sponsored posts, anything like that, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Hit me up. I need more people talking about it. I'd love for more people to talk about it. I have a marketing budget for people to talk about it. And I had a much larger budget for some bigger creators that, like I said, they did not get back to me. That means that it is up for grabs, and I need to, I need to spend this money before it disappears, right? This comes from the publisher, so it's not like I get to pocket this. So I would love to get more people involved. Did Nerd Tween reach out to you about coming to the podcast? No, I don't think so. Yancey, listen, I love podcasting. As you can tell, I'm a yapper. I'd love to be on. If you can make that happen, listen, count me in. You just tell me when and where. Send me an email. You got my DMs. I know we're mutuals, so let's make it happen. Still here listening on the drive home. I've been here the whole time. just sitting there like Sam Rice, just with your mustache. Tomonomicon, is this a Sam Rice like backup account? Are you just a Smurf? That'd be a great twist. You got me. If this has been a game changer episode this entire time, I'd be quite impressed. Thank you so much for the likes, Yancey. I appreciate you. Between I started a podcast and he mentioned you for a guest. Dude, I'm in. How many followers you got? How many listeners you got? 4, 5, 1? I don't care. I'll talk about comics. I love yapping about comic books. I love yapping about my comic books. I love yapping about my friends' comic books. I'll go all day. And like I said, I need to market this thing. I actually haven't been writing as much. I need to get a few more pitch packets completed, a few more scripts done. I just had a couple people hit me up on Discord. If you're in there, if you hear me talking, I promise I will reply to you about scripts soon. I just got to sell this one is the problem. So, so I'm on a little bit of a podcast tour. I'm going to be on Danny J. Quick's podcast on Friday. And then I'm doing stuff with K-pop on Instagram next week. So I have those 2 appearances, but any other time, My kids go to school in the middle of the day, and I got to pick them up in the afternoon. But other than those two things, I'm free to talk about comic books. That's my main job right now. What's going on, Comic Talk? How you doing today? I was just talking about being on podcasts. I've been on Geek Speak podcast several different times. Their pull quote will be on the trade of Hellion and Bash once we get to issue 4 or 5. It will say, actually, it's pretty good. That was the sentiment that was echoed throughout that podcast, both times that I've been on there. Also, a lot of Smallville slander, and they hyped up a lot of Gotham, which was really strange, but, no accounting for taste. They like my comic books, so what does that say about them over there? Any other questions about creating comic books, publishing comic books? Hellion and Bash issue number 1 should be in everyone's hands. Unless you live in the UK, then it might be a few days delayed. Issue 2 is right around the corner. It's going to be on Kickstarter. I am going to check that out right now. Just finished Invincible Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3. Oh, I'm so excited to watch Invincible. That's what I wanted to do tonight, but I actually did have to go live. Like, this is contractually obligated. So this was part of the Kickstarter. I had to go live and do this. But I'm so pumped for Invincible. Invincible is one of my favorite comic books. Invincible and the Victories from Michael Avon Oeming are two of the biggest inspirations for Hellion and Bash. I read them when I was younger, and it was a big, eye-opening thing for what superhero comics can be and the stories that they can enable you to tell. Because a lot of my comic books are like, hey, let's get them in with superhero stories and people punching each other, and then let's give them some veggies. Let's show them what stories can really be about and hit some of those heavier themes. It's not just, oh, this isn't Spider-Man, so we can have a dude blow up and show you everything. There's so much more to it, and I learned that was a possibility from books like Invincible and The Victories, two of my favorite comic books just of all time. And the fact that so many people have become a fan of Invincible lately is just so cool. I'm never one of those gatekeeper fans of oh God, you've ruined it. I love this thing. It used to be so cool that no one ever heard of it, and now everyone likes Invincible. I think that's so cool that because so many people like Invincible now, we get more Invincible stuff. It's just so neat. Those are my co-host thoughts. We can blame them. Invincible. This is my wife realizing that Invincible Season 3 has come out, and I'm waiting for the knock on the door saying, "Hey, turn off the live so we can watch episodes 1 through 3." My wife is also a giant Invincible fan. How far are you looking to travel for cons? Trying to not be too picky, but also hard to justify 2-hour drive and all other costs. Tomonomicon, extremely picky. I've never attended a con in the way of tabling and showing off my stuff. And it was always really hard because of the price. I was trying to table at Detroit, the Motor City Comic Con. And it was $400, which in the grand scheme of things, you compare that to something like San Diego, where you're talking $5,000. $400 is nothing. It doesn't mean I have it. I still didn't have the $400 to table. Now, having a couple publishers have my back, it's a little bit easier. They've allotted me some money to go to cons. So there's help there. I can go to their table and set up and sit with them on some stuff. But travel is still a thing. I'm still a full-time dad. That makes travel difficult and getting around that sometimes. And also, when it comes to being worth it, where I am currently in my career is I got to sell comic books to help me make other ones. But I'm okay with eating some of the cost in order to get those opportunities and meet more fans. And I also have a large swath of Hellion and Bashes to sell now. So this year, I'm going to be trying to be less picky and try to go to more. I'm definitely going to try to hit Chicago and hit Emerald City. I'm going to try to do Motor City Comic Con this year, and I'm going to try to hit all the little ones in between. I have a lot of friends down in Texas who've been trying to get me to more shows out there. That's a bigger ask for me. I'm afraid to fly right now with everything that's happening. Trains are precarious in our country, so long-term travel is a little bit difficult, but I'm trying to make the leap. I almost went to Comics Pro. That almost happened for Professional Entropy because they needed some publisher representation. I'm friends with those guys. I own a piece of Professional Entropy, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to attend Comics Pro for us? Help us get some distribution." And I was almost on a train to California, but then all of the fires were happening and everything, so I sat this one out. But I'm going to try to be less picky and try to attend more. But it's a matter of money. He's not allowed to watch without me. I love you, honey. I won't watch it without you. I don't like gatekeeping. Bring it to everyone. Exactly. Gatekeeping is so lame. Kimsey, what's going on? I was just talking about you. Hey, I'll be your handler if you need someone. No. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on Invincible. Oh, listen, I got thoughts. I've read every single issue of anything related to Invincible. I can already talk about it, but I'm so excited for the show. What's up, Bug Boy? Bug Boy mentioned. What's going on? Kim say, by the way, I got back to you on Instagram. No worries about not getting back to me right away. Listen, social media is a crapshoot. It's hard to stay up to date on everybody and every single app. We got 40 of them, so no worries. Professional Entropy will be reaching out to you about doing some content. And by the way, I saw your video. I also missed it. I didn't see that you made a video about Hellion and Bash 5 days ago. Thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciated it. Love the video. Obviously, I'm going to be excited anytime anyone's talking about my book, but I quote you all the time. Kimsey is the one who was like, actually, it was pretty good. I was so surprised. I can't believe that it was actually good. I didn't expect it to. And I tell that story all the time. I was actually just talking to a publisher, and they're like, hey, what's the buzz around your books? What are your fans saying? What are like people saying who have bought it? Because we know you haven't sold thousands of copies. And that's the quote that I gave them, because I love that people pick up my book, because people see indie books, they think amateurish, and that's just not always the case. But sometimes it is. And when people pick up my book and it looks professional, it's because it is. I don't have a big name behind it. I do have a publisher now, which definitely helps, the ambiance and the presentation of the book, but it's hard to convince people that it's worth spending money on. And that's partly why I was so excited to get a publisher for this book, because they enabled me to buy thousands of copies. So I don't have to offer these books for $10, $12 a copy like I used to. I can sell these for a reasonable price. I can sell my books for $5 a piece like you would see at a comic book shop. And that's, really important, because not everybody has $10 to buy a 22-page comic. That's a lot to ask. I believed in you the whole time. Comic Talk, you did, and I appreciate you, dude. I remember doing the first interview with you, and I'm like, is this dude going to wear sunglasses the whole time? And I was like, oh, that's your shtick. Okay, I get it. That is what you're going to do. I am trying to stay awake. I'm trying to get off as much caffeine. So I am drinking a lot of LaCroix right now, and it doesn't have any of the go juice in it like I need to. Arthur, what's going on? Hey, buddy. Does anybody have any other questions about creating comic books, publishing your own comic books, finding a publisher? This book, Hellion and Bash, if anyone's read it, anything that you liked about it, anything that you didn't like about it, I'd love to hear about it. I'm thinking about doing a letter section on the next issue, because I had a couple people write in, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I just don't know if it has the longevity. I don't know if people have questions like that. So I'm considering it as like a stretch goal for issue 2, but I didn't want to force it. And also, it ups the price of the book. You got to print more pages when you do that. I loved everything about the comic. Comic Talk, now you're just trying, listen, you're just trying to suck up to me now. I get it. I'm still going to come on the podcast, okay? You don't have to love everything about it, but I appreciate you. Would you say self-publishing is good for the first issue? Bug Boy, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't think you have a choice. Unless you're best friends with James Tynion, I don't see you having a choice when it comes to your first issue. Not many publishers are going to give you a shot if you've never made a comic book before. If it's your first issue, you're probably going to have to self-publish it. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. I'd say finish that issue, put it out, make issue 2 until you start getting into those conversations, until you're ready to start having stuff ready to pitch to publishers. I wasted a lot of time making pitch packets, and they were good. Like, I had stuff like Hellion and Bash. I had better stuff than Hellion and Bash in these pitch packets. And publishers didn't care because I had never made a book before. And the thing that the note I got back the most when I started getting no's And like, because when you first start, you're going to send out pitch packets. No one's going to say anything. Then you're going to send out more stuff, and they're going to say no. And then eventually your stuff's going to get better, and they're going to say no, and here's why. And the here's why part that I started to get a lot was, listen, your writing is good. The artists that you're working with are awesome. We like this book. But no one knows who you are. There's no reason for us to publish you. You're not going to bring anything to the table. You don't have the fans to support this book. We need this book to sell 2,000 copies. Can you sell 2,000 copies? And I had to be honest and say, no, I can't. And they knew that. Hellion and Bash right now has sold about 100 copies. Tokyo Fire sold about 300 copies. And that was enough. That's enough for me to keep going. That was enough to get a publisher. Hellion and Bash issue number 2 is trending towards selling more. But unless you can do those types of numbers, these publishers don't really care. And you can prove that to them, and you can build up your audience and show your craft and show that you can deliver consistently by doing those issues on your own, and then you can get out there. I just want to get my story out there, and you can do that on your own. You don't even need a publisher to do that, dude. There's so many avenues to self-publish your comic book, and you don't even have to get it printed. You don't have to go to Kickstarter. You can go to Webtoon. You can go to Tapas. You can just put it on Amazon Comics or Comixology. It's not really Comixology anymore, but you can just put your stuff up there. There's not a lot of barrier to entry. Some of my favorite comic books that have come out in the last few years started on Instagram. Like you can just put stuff out there. You don't have to worry about that. If you just need to get that story into the public's hands, you can do that way. You don't have to stress on that way. And don't put the cart before the horse. Make that book first before you're worrying about having to deal with the publisher. I might turn my book into a comic. I'll keep it to myself. You don't have to keep it to yourself. Turn your book into a comic. You love comic books. Why are you writing a book? Write a comic book. Comic books are awesome. Way better than books. Comic books have pictures, okay? Pictures worth 1,000 words. And I'm just kidding. I'm an avid reader. I love books. But I love comic books too, and I think that you could do well either way. It's important to find the right medium for your story, though. Your story might work better as a book or as a comic book, depending. Unfortunately, I need money to pay an artist. Well, that's true. If you want to work with an artist that is out of your league, you definitely need money to pay them. And you want to pay an artist money, even if they're not out of your league, if they're working on a project that's your project. If you're saying, hey, I need you to draw my vision, you need to pay them. I work with a lot of artists that are my partners, my friends, my co-creators. And how that happens is I find people that are in the same boat as me in the industry. They're trying to break in. They're trying to break through from indie comics into publishing comics. That's what happened with The Digger. That's my buddy Sam Gudalin. He had been doing indie comic books out of Russia for a few years. And I had hit him up and I was like, listen, I like your stuff. I don't always understand it because my Russian is bad, but I'm digging your art style. I really like the stuff. Can I work with you? And he was like, I've been trying to break in to American comics. Let's start talking. We talked for a while and I pitched him ideas that I had and he didn't like those. He wanted to make something new between the two of us. That's our idea. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to do that. And because it was our baby, it was our idea, we agreed to work on it mutually. I didn't pay him. He didn't pay me. It's our idea. It's our book. We completed the first issue and that sold to Invader Comics. And so you don't necessarily need money if you're willing for it to be your story with your friends, right? If it's willing to be our story. So it is a luxury, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't like, oh, I reached out the first person, they said yes, Bug Boy. It's not that easy. I looked for many years and built up those relationships, right? It took a long time to do that. So it wasn't like, oh, I know this guy. I didn't know any artist when I started making comic books. My first comic book was called Growing Up. It was an anthology. I knew an artist that I worked with when I was working on automotive parts. There was a girl that I worked with, shout out to Spoopy. Go follow her on Twitch. She's awesome. She amazing artist. And I was like, hey, you want to draw something with me? And she said, no. And I was like, well, crap, I already wrote the script. What do I do with it now? And so I found an artist on Fiverr and they helped me create that issue. And I paid for all these pitch packets. And through doing that for a few years, I started to meet more artists that were willing to work with me. And my writing, that's the big part. My writing got a lot better. My writing got so good to where I would offer to pay people and I would send them the script and they say, oh, this is actually good. Forget writing. Let's split it. Let's co-own it. I just want to draw this for you and we'll pitch it to places. And you can do that if you take the time, if you practice, if you build those relationships. You can do that too. Uh, you don't have to know anybody to start out with. But if you want someone to just work on your vision, you do need to save up and you do need to pay them. That is how it goes often. How can I be you when I grow up? What you do, Rod, is you get off here and you go finish the stuff that you already owe me. You owe me like 3 different pitch packets that I was supposed to help you narrow down for the artist that you want to work with. You have homework to do, young man. Why are you scrolling through TikTok? How do you fix when you like your character too much? My main character has no weaknesses. Kill him. uh, get rid of him. So there's 2 ways to handle a character that you like too much and has no weaknesses. Let's take Superman, for example. Superman's overpowered. Superman can't be defeated. Superman is a man with no problems. Until you look at all the problems that Superman has, right? He's not going to get punched in the face. That's not a problem he has. So you create problems that don't exist in that way, right? You give them problems that cannot be punched through. You show that anybody else who had their powers, who have had all of their abilities, doesn't matter if they're superpowers or not, all of their things that they're good at, show that in the hands of somebody else and show how that person flounders. Show that it's your character and what they're good at isn't necessarily just being awesome all the time. It's their skills that they've built up. You show them doing something like that, and you show somebody else with that same set of unique abilities flailing, right? Like when Lex Luthor gets the powers of Superman, he doesn't do a good job, and that's a big part of it. And then finally, you show that your character has weaknesses that matter because you care about them. So we don't care that Superman can't die, right? Like it doesn't matter, but you care when his dog gets sick. You care when he lets down Lois and he can't make it in time. You care when he has to choose between saving this person and that person because you care about Superman and he cares about people. You show that kind of thing, and you can do that. Now, if we're getting out of the superhero talk and we're just saying, I like this character, I don't want anything bad to happen to them, that's not a character worth writing. If nothing bad happens to your character, that's not a story. That's an anecdote. There's no arc. Nothing happens to that person. If you like that character so much you don't want anything to happen to them, they're a great side character. They're not a character you tell a story about. They're a character you tell a joke about. They're a character that happens in the background. You need to write a different story if you love that character too much. I like to break my own heart. I like a story that makes me cry. I like a story that has ups and downs and you're on that roller coaster. So when I have a character that I like too much, I show that it doesn't matter how much I like somebody. The people that I love the most in my life, bad things happen to them, right? Like their lives are not perfect. And these are the best people that I know. These are people that are basically saints, and bad crap still happens to them. So even if you love a character so much, you have to be willing to hurt them in many different ways to have a story, because you have to have adversity. Otherwise, what are we reading? I don't think I have that. Unfortunately for me, it's harder to find a job. I understand that, Bug Boy, and I get that. And that's why I was saying, like, do the other thing. If you can't afford to pay an artist, build those relationships. Find people that become your friends that are in the same boat as you and just want to make stories. And it'll take a long time and it'll be harder than you think, but you can do it. It's not impossible. You can make those relationships. Like I said, when I started doing this, I didn't know a single artist, and I just kept looking and I kept practicing my writing. And eventually I started to make friends. And you have communities like this on here, right? There's so many amazing artists on TikTok that are looking to break into comics and want to try something. And you can reach out and become friends and talk to them. Same thing with Instagram. Oh, excuse me. Instagram is another great place. I haven't done much on Reddit. I know a lot of people meet their creative partners through Reddit. Those communities for comic book creators, and Facebook is another one. Again, I don't mess with those, but TikTok, Instagram, and ArtStation was another one. A lot of my first collaborators I found through ArtStation, and going there and just finding people that have ArtStation is great because it lists like what they want to make. So like they want to make comic books, they want sequential art, and then what kind of jobs they're looking for. And they have things like, I'm trying to break into comics, I'm trying to create comic books, I'm trying to find a creative partner. They have things like that in their bios, and you can reach out to these people and try to form some sort of community to help you make your comic books. Don't give up just because you can't pay them. Don't give up just because you don't know anybody. These are problems that you can solve. It's just a matter of time. Anybody else have any questions about creating comic books, publishing comic books? writing in general. I answer a lot of writing questions. I'm also an editor for hire. If you have questions about editing, I will say I don't love editing as much, but I do it. It helps if you can pay me in artwork. A lot of the a lot of the editing that I do for people is so they draw more things for me. But that's another thing, Bug Boy, is you're not without merits. How to do it's you're it's hard sometimes because if you're a writer trying to break in, it's really easy to go, well, I have nothing to offer anybody because people think that they can write, so they don't need you, right? Anybody can write. You put it down on paper, but not everybody is good at it. And if you can show that you're good at it, that is a commodity worth selling and worth partnering with people. When I first started, I was like, there's never going to be an artist that needs me, a writer, because anybody can write. And then you learn that not anybody can. And you learn that if you do your due diligence and you practice enough, you have stories that you can offer people and skill set that they don't have. And then eventually you'll meet artists that need a writer, who want a writer, who are looking for someone to do the thing that they can't do. And it happens now. And it's a thing. It's like a unicorn. I thought I'd never see it happen. And it happens on the daily. And so it's just about practicing your craft and getting it out there. I suppose I should plug the book that is about to go live on Kickstarter as well, Hellion and Bash Issue 2. If you haven't read Issue 1, that's okay. You can back it and get caught up. Issue 1 is going to be part of that campaign as well. So don't fret. If you haven't seen it, you can get both copies and catch up on the Issue 2 Kickstarter. And I don't spoil it until about halfway down the page, so you can still learn all about Hellion and Bash Issue 1 without spoiling Issue 2, so you don't have to stress anything about that. You can pick up both of those, and I think Tokyo Fire is going to be a part of that as well, if you want to check out some other stuff that I've written. And then I was scanned by a supposed artist. That sucks. Bug Boy, I had the same thing happen to me. I got scanned by an artist. That's why I stopped using Fiverr, is I had an artist stealing other people's art to use as their, portfolio on there. And when I got pages back, it just very clearly wasn't the same skill set. It wasn't the same skill level of art. And I had to report them. And the cool thing is it came out of it as I got to talk to that artist. And I was like, hey, this person is impersonating you on Fiverr. And I made a quick connection and helped them take that account down. But I stopped working through accounts like that, and it sucked. That's what happened to me. It happens, and it really sucked. It was a bad way for me to start out, but it was a good lesson to learn, and that's why I don't mess with job sites like that anymore. It was just like direct, networking with people and just reaching out. Unfortunately, it was a lot harder because when that didn't work out, because I was like, oh, this is just all the jobs listed. That's when I had to start cold calling and just finding emails of people that I liked, and it's really. You got to experience like a little bit of that ego death. You got to have to set that aside and just go, people are going to say no. You have to accept that people are going to be like, no, why would I ever work with you? I don't care about you. And you're going to get those emails back. Sometimes people can be really nasty. Sometimes people just ignore you, but that's part of it. If you want this that bad, that's what you start to do. You have to reach out to people and ask if they will work with you. Ask them to take a chance on you. I'm not messing with Reddit artists for that reason. That's fair. I don't know too much about the Reddit community, but I'm going to tell you this, Bug Boy. It's a lot easier to list all the ways that you can't do this. It's a lot easier to list all the ways that this is not going to happen. It's not going to help you further your idea of what you want, which is creating comic books, presumably. So find the ways that do work. Don't let those things bog you down. Reddit doesn't work. Fiverr doesn't work. Keep looking for collaborators. Note that. Don't forget that lesson, but don't let that lesson decide what you're going to do for your job. Finding collaboration partners is a chore, but worth it when you click. Lord.com, 1,000%. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It feels like a slog, and it feels impossible until it starts to happen. And all that, you can use all of that time to get better at writing. I didn't sit with my thumb up my butt while I was doing that. When I was getting all of those no's, it's like, okay, I'm going to write a better script. I'm going to keep working on other scripts. The other thing I started to do as I was doing that was I tried to learn how to draw. I know that's not a thing that everybody can do. And I still am not great at it, but I'm getting much better to the point where now I get some comic book work. I do covers and I do some concept art for people. And that's a way to do that, right? So Like, just don't sit on it. Don't let it decide what you're going to do for you. How's it going, dude?
It's going. I just got off work. I just wanted to share, just giving you a perspective on that exact conversation while I had a minute here.
Yeah.
So I'm an artist. I'm an artist as well, right? Like I draw. Today, all I've been drawing in between calls at work is I've been practicing neo-traditional American tattoo style.
Oh, heck yeah.
But I know personally, I am a pen and paper artist. I can't do tattooing or anything like that because that's not how I'm trained. When you find a collaborator, though, one of my good friends, he is a professional tattoo artist, but our meshing is so good, I can give him my drawings. I wish my camera. Oh, here we go. Let me get my camera on here for you. There we go. So, like, I designed that drawing, but he's the one who elevated it to make it into something tattoo worthy.
Hell yeah.
So, and that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have a good collaborating, good partnership to mesh with.
Right, 1,000%. And like, I'm sure you didn't find them overnight, right? Like, it wasn't like, oh, well, I want this tattoo drawn. The first person I talked to said yes, right?
No, I'm a little bit spoiled. My main tattoo artist and I have been friends since high school.
Well, okay.
Yeah, we were the two dorks in football practice who were laying people out and drawing anime on the sideline. So.
Well, then that is a little bit of a unicorn, right? Like, I knew some people in high school that drew really well, and when I started reaching out to them, like, hey, I write comic books now. Do you want to work on something with me? They were like, no. Why would I ever do that? That's not something that I want to do. Like, right. No interest.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to hop in here while I had a minute and just give a good example of what you were just talking about. But keep up the good work, brother.
Hell yeah, man! Thank you.
Later.
I love the drop by. Like, that's so cool. Thank you so much for that insight. But like, that's a perfect example, Bug Boy, of what can happen when you do find that collaboration eventually. And just don't give up, okay? Like, it's so easy to say all of the ways how it can't work. And the harder thing is to do it anyways. And the only way to fail is to give up. And so if you don't give up, you haven't failed yet, and you can keep going. I did some connections at conventions like VidCon and other nerdy conventions. That's rad. And that's what I need to do. That's the thing that I don't do is I'm a dad. I'm in my 30s. I work from home. I don't go to a lot of places. I live in the Midwest. I'm in Michigan. There's not a lot of places. I have started, like I said, go to more like comic book shops and reach out to people. I'm trying to hit cons for the first time this year and just trying to get out there because I hear so many stories about people making it a little bit further in their career because of those connections. And it's a big part of everything, especially in the art community. So that's what I've been trying to do. And just to help me level up a little bit. But it's not a bad thing to be in indie comics, and it's not a bad thing to self-publish. The first thing that everyone asks me is like, oh, how did you get the publisher, and which publisher should I try to pitch to? And the crappy thing I always have to say is like, they're probably going to say, no, you haven't done anything yet. You have to put out a few comic books to die, basically. And that's why I talk about it being like almost pay to play, because you have to start making comic books and pay your dues, if you will, to start to build out that portfolio, especially if you're a writer. I make connections at a con as well. See, there you go, Bug Boy. Like, it's possible, dude. Just don't give up. But I love making comic books, and I would love to do it like on a larger scale. But again, it's pay your dues. So that's why like I'm putting out books like Hellion and Bash. I got a publisher to agree to help me put out more of these books. I'm just going to keep doing it. And I keep surprising people. And that's the coolest thing. I love that people pick up my book out of pity and then go, oh crap, it's actually pretty good. That like, well, actually it's not bad. That's my favorite thing, is that surprise. It's because, if they underestimate you, you're only ever going to impress them. And that's a good place to be when it comes to working in any career, is if you can impress somebody, you're going to leave a lasting impression. If people go in thinking I'm going to be, reading Invincible, and they're like, well, it wasn't as good as Invincible, they're going to be let down by the book. They're not going to want to pick up my next one. But if they think it's going to be this terrible indie amateur crap and they pick it up and they go, oh, it's actually pretty good, that's not a bad place to be in, A big fish in a small pond kind of thing. I've gotten 3 scripts finished. Heck yeah, Bug Boy. Are those 3 scripts for the same series or 3 scripts for like different series, like all number 1s? That's something that I don't often do. I write a lot of number 1s, and then when I start to get traction or get an artist involved, that's when I start doing issue 2s and onward. Oh, for Chimera. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing to have, especially like if you're going to be trying to hire an artist, like having stuff to hand them and going, listen, I know where this story is going is really helpful. Hypnotherapy, how's it going? Warblazer, how you doing? Working on issue 4 currently. Heck yeah. I love to see it. So many people will start to make like a book and then lose interest or not like finish it up. Or I get so many pitches for stuff. I get so many people going, hey, I have this idea for a book. And they'll send me like basically like a dream board, like a Pinterest page where it's like, this is the album to listen to while you're reading it. And this is the idea I kind of have. And I hired an artist to do this character sketch of it. And I'm like, that's cool. Where's the script? Where's the rest of the thing? And when you start working on it, that's when it starts to become real. You got to have those scripts. The ideas are sadly a dime a dozen. So many people have ideas. It's about the execution and actually getting the work done. And that's why I say yes to so many projects. Even like ones that I don't get paid for or I get paid less. I've paid to be a part of some comic books because it's about building a resume. I want, when I get that chance, when a publisher says yes to me or yes to meeting me or does click on my profile, I want them to see that there's a body of work there that shows that I can get that job done. And that's how you do it, Bug Boy, is you keep writing, you keep working on that stuff. So when the opportunity comes, you're ready. You know, opportunity plus preparation equals success. That nerdy Papa Bear is back. What's going on, dude? Did you go do your homework? Is that why you came back? Did you finally finish the stuff that you owe me? Because I have fish on the line right now. I'm doing edits for Green Zone number 4, which is also live on Kickstarter right now. You can go check out, and you can go back that. But I'm talking to him right now. So if you come in here and you still don't have your homework done, I'm gonna have words with thee, Thor style. And I guess it's about 15 minutes past, so I will once again plug Hellion and Bash issue number 2. It's about to go live on Kickstarter. Go over to that launch page, click the notify me when it launches. It helps get the numbers up. It's a big deal. This is the first time a publisher has given me the money ahead of time to make another issue. So I need to show them that it was worth it. So please go check it out. I tried Kickstarter, but people don't know about my series. Yeah, that's a hard thing, dude. Why do you think I'm doing these things? That's why I'm doing this. Pre-save it, do it. Thanks, honey. But that's why I'm doing this stuff. Bug Boy, that's why I got on Kickstarter. That's why I got on TikTok the first place. I had that series Tokyo Fire coming out. Zoop said yes to it. And I said, hey, I need 10 grand for this book. Okay. I need 10 grand so I can get the issues going. And they laughed at me. They're like, listen, we will $45. Exactly. That's basically what Zoop told me. They're like, listen, your artwork's good. You're a good writer. We can see, we like the book. No one is going to give you $10,000 to make this book. You've never made a book before. No one's ever heard of you. We think that maybe if you push it and you offer a ton of free stuff and you start doing legwork right now and start advertising it, maybe you can earn $2 grand. And I said, okay, what should I be doing? And they said, you need to get on socials. You need to get on TikTok. You need to get on Instagram. And so I did. I had a TikTok account and I had watched it for a long time, especially like during the pandemic and stuff. But I had never posted anything. I wasn't a social media guy. That's not what I did. And they were like, you need to become a social media guy. You need to talk about your book. You need to be making videos talking about your characters. You need to be making videos showing off the artwork. You need to talk about your script. You need to get fans. You need to create them out of thin air. Otherwise, no one's going to find you. Like, there are some people who troll through those sites now looking for new comic books to support, but they're fewer and farther between. And you have to create that groundswell. You have to make people want that book. So you can't just launch it on Kickstarter and hope to build fans that way. It's a good way to continue building fans, but it's a bad way to just start. So the fact that you made $45 is more than I would have made, you know? So like that, but start talking about Chimera more here on TikTok. Make it a daily thing. Post every single day if you can, at least once, talking about that book. Start inviting people like me and other people to talk about it. post more in all the different forums that we're a part of, the different communities, and start discussing your book and building up that fan base. And once you have more stuff to show off, get on podcasts, start reaching out to other people who create books. Comic Talk, I appreciate you. That means a lot, dude. Thank you. And you can eventually meet people like Comic Talk and go on their show and go, hey man, will you let me be on one of your TikTok videos to talk about my book? I don't have many things to talk about regarding Chimera besides the characters. Exactly. But that's what you got to talk about. Hellion and Bash, right? When this was first coming out, like what did I have to talk about? I'm like, okay, a lot of this is spoilers. So what? I guess I got to spoil it a little bit. Hey, this guy right here, he's a bad guy. He's like Batman, but he's evil and he's mean to his Robin. Okay. And Catwoman needs to go save him. That pretty big spoiler, but that's what the book's about. I need to talk about it. No one cares that there's a spoiler because they don't care that this book exists. No one asked for this. Nobody wanted this. So I had to start talking about that. Tokyo Fire. All right. These two guys, they're homeless. They live in a futuristic city. It's cyberpunk. It's a irradiated city. There's a class revolution happening, and people are starting to get powers in that world. And they're pyrokinetic, and they're starting to burn down buildings. They're starting to gang, and they're caught in the middle of it. These guys don't matter. They have a mentor, Lee, who's like a racer, okay? And he's trying to earn enough money doing street races to get them out of the slums, but he can't do it. So they start robbing stuff, and they see stuff that they're not supposed to see. That's all spoilers for the first issue of Tokyo Fire. But you have to start talking about it. You have to start talking, because no one cares that it's a spoiler for Chimera, number one, Bug Boy. They don't yet. So you have to start talking about it. You have to be excited. You got to be the salesman. You got to start talking about those characters and those premises that you have. It will work eventually. If you're excited about it, people will care. Hellion is it's like a combination of like Nova and the Kid Devil and Robin and all the cool stuff that I love about sidekicks. And I love legacy. And I love the idea that not every superhero was good. I loved growing up seeing that Batman made mistakes and like the original Ant-Man was a jerk. And not everybody that carried this mantle had a great legacy to pass on other than the superpowers. And so I started talking about all these things, and eventually people cared enough to buy my book. And yeah, getting used to talking on camera is such a big part of it. I'm bad at it, as you can tell. I stutter a lot. I have a face for radio. I don't have that natural confidence to do it, but you have to. It's part of the job. And I hate it. I wish I could tell you that you don't have to do that. I wish you could tell you that you just had to be a good writer. Sadly, that's one of the smallest parts of my job. Now, when it comes down to actually finally writing and having to hand somebody a script, you got to be good at it. If my scripts weren't good, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. But I've seen people on this app that don't write as well as me, and they sell a lot more books because they're better at talking. It's a big part of the job. And that's not to say that all of them do that. There's still a lot of books that are way better than mine. But they sell more because they're better at talking. It's such a big part of the job. You got to get good at it. It's scary, but the more they do it, it gets easier. It definitely gets easier to just do it. You have to not care about being bad at it. And you have to appreciate all the people that stop by. It's scary when you think, oh, no one's going to watch. And then it's scary when you start doing it and nobody is watching. And then it starts to get scary that there's not 100 people watching, but you stop caring because there's 7 people in here watching this that give a crap, that are asking questions, that bought Hellion and Bash, presumably, that are excited about issue number 2. I don't have a million friends, but when I reach out to them, I go, hey, will you hop into my live? I post it in all the places where my friends are and go, hey, will you stop by and ask a few questions? One of those 7 people is my wife, right? Like she's legally bound to me in matrimony by the state of Michigan. But like I said, hey, please, will you ask some questions in the chat while I talk about this book so I'm not alone in there? And you have a lot of cool people that I know that are mutuals with me, including myself, that if you go live, I'll stop by and ask questions. You're not in this alone. We're all making comic books, and we all love the medium, and we all love making them. And I love people who make them. I love talking about this stuff. And there's so many other people that will too. So you're not alone in it. I will not stand for T.S. slander. You are answering. Thank you, Comic Talk. I appreciate it. The good thing about my caveman look is that my wife has curated this. When I met her, I was fresh faced. I weighed like 100 pounds. I had short hair. I skateboarded and parkoured everywhere. I weighed maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. And over the years, she has cultivated her ideal man, and that is 5'7" Hobbit caveman looking dude with unkempt beard and long hair and a dad bod. That's what she was into, and so this is what I am. You think I want to look like this? You think I want to hit the gym, Comic Talk, but she won't let me. This is what she has asked for, so I want to be on a podcast and talk about my comic. Don't we all? Speaking of which, if you have a podcast out there and you'll let me yap about my comic books or anybody else's for a 5-minute plug to talk about this, I will send you a book to make sure that you know that I know what I'm doing. I would love to be on and chat about it. If I've already been on your podcast and you would allow me to be on again, I would gladly talk about my books some more because I always have something new to plug because it's all about the hustle. It's all about making comic books. But Bug Boy, I will say, I was really bad at like asking. I never wanted to be a burden. I never wanted someone to be like, oh, okay, I guess. But you have to get over that. No one's going to do anything for you or allow you to do anything without you asking because they don't know you. And so when you're ready to talk about it, you need to reach out to those podcasts and say, hey, can I be on? Can I send you a book to read? I spent all last week. Sent about, I think the last time I checked, I sent 357 emails, okay, to influencers, to comic book creators, to podcasters, to reviewers, critics, news sites, just going, hey, I have this new book coming out. Can I talk about it with you? Can I send you a copy? Are you interested? Will you give me a platform to talk about it? Will you talk about it? Will you talk about it somewhere where people will see? Will you put up a post about it? The majority of those will be left on red. They will not reply. They will not be interested. But some people do. Some awesome people do. I got to be on the Geek Speak podcast. I get to be on a few other podcasts coming up next week. I get to talk to Ace Blade, Danny J. Quick on his podcast with Mr. Fish. I get to talk to K-Pop, Katie, over on Instagram, doing some of the best nerd content on the internet. I get to be on that podcast next week. Like, you have to ask, and eventually cool people will say yes. If you're enthusiastic, there's so many people that want to give you a chance and want to talk about comic books. I'd love to be on Ace Blade's podcast. And there you go. Like, it's just about making that book and finding the right time. And you have to be okay with people saying no, and you have to be okay with people not saying anything, because that's the more likely thing. Never forget, the rejection usually doesn't come with the no. It usually comes with silence. That's the biggest thing when it comes to creating anything on the internet. People will tell you it's the trolls and the people just crapping on it, and it's not. It is the resounding echo of your own voice, because nobody else cares that you make a thing. And you really have to get used to it, because it can be jarring, because you're prepared. You're prepared to have a thick skin. You're prepared for everyone to say, no, you suck. I don't want your thing. I wasn't prepared for nobody caring, like, at all. And you can't take it personally. Like, it's a part of it. You have to make them care. You got to get on a live and talk for 2 hours going, hey, I'm making this book. It doesn't matter if there's 5 people or 500. You have to tell them about your book and hope that they care enough to go check it out. Hope that they care enough to go to Kickstarter and type in Hellion and Bash Issue 2 and click that notify me button so you know when it goes live. Or if you want to click on the link in my bio, it's right there. I need to work on how to describe issue 1. Bug Boy, I will say that's the biggest thing that you want to do once you're done writing, is you want to work on that elevator pitch. You want to get it distilled down to 2 things. First, you want to be able to say it in 1 sentence, what your book is about. What's the best way to pitch it? Hellion and Bash is who protects a sidekick from their superhero. Okay? The Digger is what if Indiana Jones hunted Short Round? Tokyo Fire was what if 2 thieves saw something that they shouldn't see, and that shouldn't see has pyrokinetic abilities. Like, you do something crazy, do something wacky, distill it down to just a dumb sentence that catches people's attention. Then the second thing you do is you expand that to a paragraph. So when they go, okay, tell me more, you tell them just a little bit more. They don't want a whole page after that. They don't want 2, hours worth of explanation. They want another paragraph. They want to hear a little bit more. So you do the sentence, and then you do the paragraph, and then you do 400 more versions of it, because that paragraph and that sentence isn't going to work on everybody. Some people aren't going to care. You got to be able to pitch it a million different ways. You got to be able to pitch it from memory every single time. the best to your ability. So that's what you want to work on next. I'm going to head out. I have to eat. Have a good one. My favorite writer, Comic Talk. I love you. Thank you so much, dude. That means a ton. And you know what? I need to go out too. I need to go watch at least one episode of Invincible with the missus before she leaves me. Because again, like I said, she's the only reason why I get to make comic books. So I got to keep doing this. All I got is, what if a weapon didn't want to be a monster? Dude, that's a great pitch. So what you said, like when it comes to Chimera, I don't know your main characters, but I've seen the Iron Giant, and the Iron Giant, it was pitched as, what if a gun had feelings and didn't want to be a weapon? That is the pitch for Iron Giant. So that's where you start. You say Iron Giant meets, and whatever it meets, whatever the other characters are in Chimera. But that's, what if a weapon didn't want to be a monster? Like that's a great way to describe it. But I would say like the second way to describe it is Iron Giant meets something else. I'll send you issue 1. Please do. I don't know if we're on the same Discords, but you can email me, comics@can'tbekilledcreations.com. I think we're mutuals on here, so you can always message me there, and I can send you there. And so, yeah, so definitely hit me up. I would love to read it. If you want notes, I can give you that. If you just want to know that somebody has read your work, I'm completely fine with that too. I don't need to tear it apart or anything like that. But I'm happy to talk about comics. And I appreciate that you didn't give up, and I appreciate that you've written that much. That's more than a lot of people give me when they say they want to tell me about their story. So I appreciate the hustle. But I would gladly read it. And again, please go check out Hellion and Bash issue number 2. If you read issue 1, thank you so much. If you supported and created it, you're the reason why I have this job, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. If you want to do this again, I'm going to be doing it again tomorrow around noon. EST, so please come by, ask more questions, just hang out with me. We'll make it a mukbang. I'll eat some noodles, and we can talk about more comics. Thank you so much, everybody. My name's TS, and I write comics. I'll talk to you later. All right, bye, everybody on the YouTube chat.